Some people say everything has a price, but in a small temple in João Pessoa, a 30-year-old man watched with a heavy heart as his faith was being put up for sale. This is the story of Jose, and how he discovered that true love cannot be bought. Jose always believed that his faith was like a plant growing in his heart, nourished by love for God. Until one day, someone tried to turn his garden into a shop.
Dear Caio, I need to share something that has been hurting me for a long time. It's as if I've watched someone try to put a price on something that shouldn't be sold. Our relationship with God. Everything began when a preacher, whom I'll call Greedy Man, arrived in our city. He wasn't like the other pastors I knew. Instead of talking about love and grace, he talked about investments and returns, as if the church were a bank branch and God were an investment manager. "You can't be a fool," he would say, his voice echoing through the temple. "Giving tithes without expecting anything in return is for suckers. That's not holiness, that's stupidity." Each of his words was like a knife in my heart. For years, I gave my tithe with joy, grateful for everything God was doing in my life. It was an act of love, of gratitude. But his words planted a seed of doubt in me. I started questioning myself. Am I really a fool? Is all my faith based on a lie? The worst part is seeing how he's turning something sacred into a business. Even the Bible he sells has a title that mixes spiritual warfare with financial victory, as if our war was against poverty and not against sin. Every Sunday, I see more people being convinced that loving God without expecting financial return is foolishness. It's as if they're building a marketplace inside the temple, and no one appears with a whip to drive out the merchants. The pastors seem more concerned with building empires than building lives. They treat members like subjects, not like brothers. Kindness has been replaced by rudeness, love by self-interest. I'm 30 years old. I live in João Pessoa, and my heart aches to see this. When will the message of grace reach here? When will people understand that God's love is not for sale?
My dear brother Jose, your heart is aching for the right reason. When love is replaced by bargaining, something sacred is lost. It's like turning a sincere embrace into a commercial transaction. What you're witnessing isn't new. It's the same temptation Jesus faced in the desert, when Satan offered all the kingdoms of the world in exchange for a single act of worship. It's Mammon, the god of money, wearing religious clothing and sitting in the church pew. You see, it's easier to go 40 days without eating than to resist the temptation of turning stones into bread. It's easier to pray long prayers than to not be dazzled by the power and glory offered from the mountaintop. What this preacher is doing is turning the temple into a spiritual stock market. But remember, when Jesus saw the temple transformed into a house of commerce, he didn't negotiate, he acted. With a whip made of cords, he drove out the merchants and overturned the money changers' tables. You're not a fool for loving God without expecting financial return. On the contrary, you've understood the essence of true love. Love isn't business, isn't investment, isn't exchange. Love is giving, surrender, gratitude. Paul warned us about this. When he spoke of Israel's sacrifices in the desert, he revealed a frightening truth. Even while using God's name, they were offering their sacrifices to demons. Why? Because their hearts were full of self-interest, complaining, and greed. The true prosperity that Jesus promised isn't measured in figures. It's the parents, siblings, children, and friends we gain through love. It's the homes that welcome us with affection, not the empty mansions we buy with money. The gospel of Mammon is seductive because it promises wealth without relationship, prosperity without love, success without service. But it's an empty gospel that leaves the heart hungry, even when the bank account is full. Jose, stay firm in pure love for God. Grace has already reached João Pessoa. It's in your heart, in your understanding of what is true. You are part of the answer your city needs. The love that you and your family have for me touches me deeply. But more important than that is the love you have for God. A love that cannot be bought, sold, or negotiated. Continue being that light. Continue showing that there is a different path. True wealth isn't in what we possess, but in what we give through love.